The clinking of silverware against porcelain filled the dining room, accompanied by the faint hum of the ceiling fan above. My mother-in-law, Helena, had gone all out for this Sunday family dinner. The oak table was dressed with her signature lace runner, bowls of roasted vegetables, lemon butter salmon, and the smell of her famous garlic bread warming the air. It should have been a cozy, ordinary evening. But in hindsight, it was the night everything shifted. I remember smiling, fork in hand, chatting with my brother-in-law about something trivial sports. I think when the words slipped out of my mouth like a natural thought, "I'm so excited for the wedding next week," I said it casually. Brightly, with the kind of anticipation you only get when someone you love is about to tie the knot. I was looking at my sister, Hannah, as I said it. She was seated across from me, sipping from a glass of red wine, her manicured fingers tapping lightly against the stem. For a moment, there was silence. Then, she burst out laughing. Not the polite kind of laugh, not even the confused one you give when you don't understand something. Not his was sharp, deliberate, mocking. "What?" she snorted between laughs, her face twisting with amusement. "It's already over," I blinked, thinking she was joking. Surely, she couldn't mean, but then my mother-in-law shifted uncomfortably in her chair, reached for her phone, and tapped on the screen. She turned it toward me, and there it was, a picture. A beautiful wedding photo, crisp and bright. The ceremony had already happened. Hannah smirked over the rim of her wine glass, her voice dripping with condescension. "Oops," she sang mockingly, "I must have given you the wrong date." LOL, my throat went dry. The chatter around the table died as everyone watched me. The humiliation crept up my neck, burning, suffocating. My chest tightened as I tried to process the weight of what I was seeing. They had celebrated without me. On purpose. I couldn't speak. Couldn't even swallow. My hand trembled as I set down my fork, the scrape of metal against porcelain echoing louder than it should have. "Excuse me," I whispered, barely audible, as I pushed my chair back, and then I walked away. No yelling. No crying. No accusations. Just silence. Because in that moment, I knew two things. 1, they had deliberately excluded me. 2, silence would scare them more than any outburst ever could. As I stepped into the hallway, I heard Hannah chuckle again, softer this time. She thought she had won. But she had no idea that the quiet exit wasn't surrender, it was the beginning of something much bigger. To understand why this cut so deep, you'd have to know my relationship with Hannah. Growing up, we weren't just sisters, we were best friends. Shared secrets, swapped clothes, midnight snacks in our childhood bedroom. But as adults, something shifted. It started subtly, her undermining me in front of friends, the sly digs about my weight, my job, my choices. I brushed it off as sibling rivalry, but over time, it became clear, she thrived on making me feel small, and yet, when she announced her engagement, I was genuinely happy for her. She was marrying Ryan, a man she'd been with for years. He wasn't perfect, aloof, a little arrogant, but he made her laugh, and she seemed happy. I was excited to stand by her side, to help plan. To celebrate. We'd talked about the dress fittings, the catering, even the playlist for the reception. Or so I thought, but somewhere along the way, she decided I didn't belong there, and the way she delivered that revelation with a smirk, a mocking laugh, and a fake apology told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't forgetfulness. This wasn't a scheduling mistake, this was war. I left the dinner early, not even bothering with an excuse. The walk from Helena's house to mine was only 15 minutes, but it felt like hours. My heels clicked against the pavement, my fists clenched tight at my sides. At first, the emotions tangled inside me were humiliation and sadness. But as each step carried me further from their smug faces, something else began to simmer, anger, and beneath that, something even sharper, resolve. They thought excluding me was the punchline to some cruel joke. They thought I'd sulk, cry, fade quietly into the background, but I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. If they wanted to play dirty, I could play dirtier, because one thing Hannah always underestimated about me was my patience. My ability to bide my time, to let others think they'd won. Right until the moment I turned the tables. And oh, I was going to turn them. I woke up with that image burned into my mind, Hannah's smug smirk, Helena's awkward glance, the wedding photo glowing on the phone screen. I made myself a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table, notebook open. Not for journaling, no. This was strategy. The question wasn't if I would respond. It was how. I thought about Ryan, her new husband. I thought about the whispers I'd overheard once at a party that he wasn't as loyal as he seemed. About the times I'd caught his eyes lingering where they shouldn't. Pieces of a puzzle began falling into place. If Hannah had no problem humiliating me in front of the whole family, maybe it was time she learned what real humiliation felt like. Not through shouting. Not through revenge that could be brushed off as petty, no, through truth, the kind of truth that shatters everything, and I already had the first thread of it in my hand. The morning after that dinner, I couldn't stop replaying Hannah's words in my head. Oops, I gave you the wrong date, LOL. That smirk. That cruel glint in her eyes. She wanted to see me broken, but I wasn't broken. Not yet. I started with coffee and silence, then moved to research. If there was one thing Hannah hated more than being ignored, it was being underestimated. And right now, she had no idea I was plotting Ryan. Her brand new husband. The man who, just weeks before, had leaned a little too close when no one was watching, his cologne lingering longer than appropriate. The man who, during Hannah's engagement party, had let his gaze drift over me when she wasn't paying attention. I'd brushed it off then, but now it felt like the beginning of a thread, and I was ready to pull. I started small, scrolling his socials. His Instagram was full of gym selfies, vacation snaps, and of course, the wedding album. Hannah was tagged in most of them, smiling beside him, hand on his chest like she owned the world. But I noticed something odd. His comment section, there were the usual congrats and heart emojis, but sprinkled in were subtle things. Compliments that felt a little too personal. A girl named Maya with a heart emoji here, a wink there. Someone he never responded to publicly but whose likes showed up in his following tab consistently. Interesting. I didn't want to jump to conclusions. If I was going to tear Hannah's world down, it had to be flawless. No room for doubt, no chance for her to twist the narrative. So, I waited. Observed. Collected. Over the next week, I started noticing patterns. Ryan worked late often. His phone was glued to his hand, even during family gatherings. And once, while at Helena's again, I caught a glimpse of his lock screen, a notification from him, not Hannah, someone else. I tucked that away. It was almost too perfect when I ran into him at the grocery store one Thursday evening. He was alone, pushing a cart, distracted by his phone. I smiled, casual. Ryan? Hey. He looked up, startled, then quickly plastered on a grin. Oh, hey. Didn't expect to see you here. We made small talk about groceries, about how Hannah was settling into married life. He was polite, charming even. Too charming, and then, as we walked toward the checkout, his phone buzzed again. He turned it over instinctively, face down on the cart handle. I didn't say anything. Just raised an eyebrow, subtle enough for him to notice. His smile faltered for a fraction of a second. Gotcha. That night, I wrote in my notebook, Maya confirm identity, Ryan's late nights track patterns, build proof. Hard, undeniable proof, because here was the thing, if I simply told Hannah he was cheating, she'd laugh in my face. She'd accuse me of being jealous, dramatic, desperate. No, if I wanted to take her down, I'd have to let her discover it herself publicly, painfully, with no way to deny it, and if I timed it right, her smug little laugh from dinner would be replaced with silence. The kind of silence that only comes from heartbreak. 2 days later, I got my confirmation. Scrolling through Instagram again, I noticed Maya had posted a photo, a mirror selfie in a dimly lit hotel room. Nothing unusual, until I zoomed in. On the bedside table was a wallet. Leather, embossed with Ryan's initials. My heart pounded. It was him. She wasn't just some flirty follower. She was the other woman. The thought crossed my mind, expose him immediately. Screenshot the picture, send it to Hannah, sit back and watch her life unravel. But then I thought about that smirk again. That laugh at the dinner table. That oops, I gave you the wrong date, LOL. No, quick revenge would be too easy. Too clean. She needed to suffer the way I had publicly, in front of the family, with no escape, and that meant patience. The following week, Helena announced another family dinner. I almost skipped it, still bitter from the last one, but then an idea sparked. What better stage than Helena's table? The same table where they humiliated me. I accepted the invitation with a polite smile, already picturing Hannah's face when the truth came out. But first, I had to make sure Ryan took the bait. I texted him the day before the dinner. Something innocent, something that could be taken the wrong way if Hannah saw it. Hey Ryan, do you know if Hannah wants me to bring dessert tomorrow? I didn't want to bother her if she's busy. He replied quickly. Not sure. I'll check with her. Then, a second later, but yeah, dessert sounds good. She loves cheesecake, I smirked. He was too comfortable texting me. Too casual. Perfect. The night of the dinner, showed up with a box of cheesecake. Hannah was already there, sitting beside Ryan, glowing in her new wife status. She gave me a tight smile, eyes flicking to the box in my hands. Oh, cheesecake. My favorite, she said. But her tone was clipped, annoyed. Almost like she was suspicious already. Good. Let her squirm. Throughout dinner, I watched them carefully. Ryan's phone buzzed more than once, and each time, he turned it face down. Hannah noticed. I saw the flicker of irritation in her eyes. I didn't say a word. Didn't need to, because sometimes, silence was the sharpest weapon of all, and soon, that silence would explode into chaos. Dinner that night ended with forced smiles and stiff goodbyes, but I caught the glance Hannah shot Ryan as they walked to their car. It wasn't the glowing, newlywed smile from their Instagram photos. It was sharp. Questioning. Good. I didn't need to say anything. The silence, the buzzing phone, the way Ryan avoided her eyes, it had already begun. 2 days later, Hannah called me. That in itself was unusual. She hadn't called in weeks, not since the wedding incident. Hey, she said, voice tight. Did Ryan seem off to you the other night? I almost laughed. The irony was too delicious. She had excluded me from her big day, and now she was seeking my validation. I kept my tone neutral, just the right balance of hesitant and supportive. I don't know. He seemed distracted, maybe. Tired, I guess. Silence on her end. Then a clipped, yeah. Okay, I knew her well enough to hear the storm brewing beneath that single word. I didn't push. That was the trick. If I came on too strong, she'd get defensive. But if I stayed quiet, she'd chase the answers herself, so instead, I planted little seeds. Casual comments, innocent observations. When she mentioned Ryan working late again, I murmured, wow, he really has a lot on his plate, huh? Must be exhausting for you. When she said he was on his phone constantly, I replied, he's always been glued to it, hasn't he? Even at family dinners, never accusations. Just gentle nudges. Enough to make her doubt, and oh, how quickly those seeds began to grow. The following weekend, I accidentally bumped into Hannah at a cafe downtown. She was sitting alone, scrolling on her phone. Her face tight with frustration. You okay? I asked, sliding into the seat across from her before she could protest. She sighed. He's been weird lately. Distant. Always texting someone, but when I ask, he says it's work. But it doesn't feel like work. I tilted my head sympathetically, hiding the smirk threatening to rise. You know Ryan loves you. Maybe it's nothing. She bit her lip, clearly unconvinced. That was the beauty of it. I didn't have to accuse him. Her imagination would do the heavy lifting. A few days later, I made sure Hannah saw something she couldn't ignore. Ryan and I crossed paths again, this time outside a hotel. He was walking quickly, jacket slung over his shoulder, phone pressed to his ear. He didn't see me, but I saw him. And more importantly, I saw her, Maya. She was leaning against a car at the curb, hair tossed over one shoulder, her smile just a little too familiar. I didn't approach. Didn't take a picture. Not yet. Instead, I waited. That evening, over drinks at Helena's, I mentioned casually, funny thing, I thought I saw Ryan downtown today. Near the Hilton, I think. Must have been on a work call, though. He was in a hurry. Hannah's fork froze halfway to her mouth. Her eyes flickered. Near the Hilton, I shrugged, feigning innocence. Yeah. Could have been someone else. Just thought it looked like him, and then I changed the subject. Later that night, my phone buzzed. A text from Hannah. You were right. It was him at the Hilton. He said he was at the office, but I checked. He wasn't. Why would he lie? I stared at the screen, savoring every word. The cracks weren't just forming anymore, they were spreading, splintering through the foundation of her marriage, and I hadn't even revealed the real proof yet. The next time we spoke, Hannah was unraveling. She was suspicious, snapping at Ryan, and he was getting defensive. Exactly the storm I wanted. Maybe I'm crazy, she confessed, running her hands through her hair. Maybe I'm just paranoid because of the wedding stress, the move, everything. I leaned forward, lowering my voice like I was confiding something. You're not crazy, Han. If something feels wrong, it usually is. Trust your gut. Her eyes filled with tears, and for a brief second, I almost felt a pang of guilt. Almost. But then I remembered her laugh. The mocking way she dismissed me at dinner. And any shred of guilt vanished. By now, I had everything I needed: Maya's posts, Ryan's patterns, the lies he fed Hannah. But I still needed the perfect stage, and once again, Helena handed it to me on a silver platter. She invited us all to another family gathering, a barbecue this time. Casual, outdoors, everyone welcome, my chance to end it, right there in front of everyone. All I had to do was bring the proof, and watch the world burn. Helena's backyard smelled like charcoal and marinated chicken, laughter floating on the warm Saturday air. The grill sizzled, kids ran across the lawn, and cousins lounged in lawn chairs with cold drinks in hand. It was the picture of family harmony, but I knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. I arrived early, carrying a tray of pasta salad, smiling politely, playing the role of the dutiful daughter-in-law. Hannah and Ryan arrived not long after. She was in a summer dress, hair pulled back, face tense despite the polite smile she pasted on. Ryan looked as smug as ever, sunglasses hiding his eyes, phone clutched in his hand like a lifeline. I felt a thrill of anticipation. Tonight, his secrets wouldn't stay hidden. Throughout the afternoon, I played the part perfectly. Chatting with cousins, laughing with Helena, offering to help with the grill. I stayed in the background, but always within sight of Hannah and Ryan. And I watched. Ryan barely spoke to her, his attention split between his phone and short, distracted answers. Hannah's jaw tightened with every buzz of his screen. She was already primed, already teetering at the edge of suspicion. All she needed was a little push. It came during dinner. We were all seated around the patio table, plates piled high, conversation flowing easily. Helena raised her glass in a toast, congratulating Hannah and Ryan on their beautiful start as newlyweds. Everyone clapped, smiling, and that's when I struck. Speaking of weddings, I said lightly, fork poised over my plate. I think I saw one of your friends downtown last week, Ryan. Maya, right? The name slipped out like a casual memory, harmless and innocent. Ryan froze. Just for a second, but I saw it. Hannah saw it too, Maya. Hannah's voice sharpened, her smile faltering. I nodded, feigning ignorance. Yeah, I think she was outside the Hilton. Funny coincidence. Maybe she works nearby. Ryan chuckled too quickly, shaking his head. Yeah, probably. I barely know her. Just some girl from the gym. The lie was weak. Too weak. Hannah's eyes narrowed, suspicion spilling over into open distrust, and I didn't say another word. I didn't need to. Dinner went on, but the air had shifted. Hannah barely touched her food, her gaze locked on Ryan. He avoided her eyes, laughing too loudly at jokes, checking his phone under the table when he thought no one was watching. The cracks weren't cracks anymore. They were gaping fissures, and then, like fate itself had chosen to join my side, it happened. Ryan's phone buzzed on the table. He ignored it at first, but then another buzz, and another. Finally, he flipped it over, trying to silence it, but Hannah saw. So did I, so did everyone. The screen had lit up with a preview of a message. From Maya, last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about you, the words were there. Clear as day, before Ryan swiped the notification away, silence fell. The kind of silence that smothers a room. Forks paused midair, glasses lowered, eyes wide, and then Hannah exploded. Who the hell is Maya? She hissed, standing so abruptly her chair screeched against the patio. Ryan's face went pale. Babe, it's not what you think, don't you dare, she snapped, voice cracking. Don't you dare lie to me again. Everyone was watching Helena, the cousins, even the kids had gone still. Ryan stammered, tried to reach for her hand, but Hannah yanked it back like his touch burned. Tears welled in her eyes, rage spilling over. I knew it. I knew something was wrong. And you've been lying to my face this whole time. He tried to talk, tried to explain, but the damage was done. The words on that screen had spoken louder than anything he could say, and all I did was sit there quietly, sipping my drink, watching Hannah's perfect world collapse in front of the entire family. The fight escalated quickly. Hannah demanded answers, Ryan sputtered excuses, and Helena tried to intervene, her face tight with embarrassment. Cousins exchanged awkward glances, whispers passing between them, and me, I stayed silent. Just like I had that first night, because silence had power. By the end of the evening, Hannah stormed out, mascara streaking down her cheeks, Ryan chasing after her with no success. Helena apologized to the family for the scene, trying to smooth things over, but the damage was irreversible. Everyone had seen it. Everyone had heard it. Ryan's affair wasn't a secret anymore, and Hannah? She was humiliated. Publicly. Just like she had humiliated me, the smirk she wore at that first dinner was gone, replaced with tears and rage, and I savored every second. The night of the barbecue ended with slammed doors and headlights disappearing down the street. Hannah left first, driving off in her car, her sobs echoing in the driveway. Ryan lingered only minutes longer before peeling out, face twisted with panic. Helena was humiliated, muttering apologies as she cleaned up plates no one had touched after the explosion. The rest of the family whispered in corners, gossip already blooming like wildfire, and me? I went home, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat on the couch replaying the scene over and over. Hannah's wide eyes, the message on the phone screen, the silence of the family table, the stage had been perfect. And the first act of their downfall had been complete. My phone buzzed early the next morning. Hannah, I let it ring 3 times before answering, just long enough to make her think I might not pick up. Her voice was ragged, swollen from crying. He admitted it. I leaned back against my pillows, pretending to sound shocked. Ryan did? He said it was nothing serious. Just a mistake. A fling. He swore it's over. Her voice cracked. But how do you call that a mistake? Last night was amazing. That's not a one-time thing. I made a sympathetic noise, quiet enough to let her keep talking. I feel like such an idiot, she whispered. I planned this whole wedding, trusted him, defended him. And he's been lying the entire time. I let a pause hang before replying softly, You're not an idiot, Hannah. You trusted the person you loved. That's not weakness, that's what marriage is supposed to be built on. He's the one who broke it, not you. She sniffled, grateful for the reassurance. And I smiled to myself. The same sister who had mocked me at dinner was now crumbling, clinging to my words. Over the next few days, Hannah confided in me more than she had in years. Every fight, every tear, every accusation, she told me everything. And in those conversations, the truth about Maya finally spilled out. Ryan admitted he had met her at the gym months before the wedding. What started as casual flirting had escalated into hotel meetups, secret texts, and promises he never intended to keep. Hannah's rage was volcanic. While I was stressing over flowers and seating charts, he was sneaking around with her. How long has everyone been laughing at me behind my back? I didn't answer that last question. I didn't have to. Her mind was already supplying the cruelest answers. I knew if I wanted this to stick, if I wanted her to feel the humiliation she dealt might couldn't just end with a confession. She had to see how deep the betrayal went, so one evening, while she was venting over the phone, I said carefully, You know, hon. I don't think you're the first person to notice. She went silent. What do you mean? I sighed, letting the pause sting. At that dinner a while back, when you told me the wedding date slipped your mind. I thought Ryan was acting weird even then. I brushed it off because I didn't want to upset you, but maybe. I trailed off, letting her imagination do the rest. So you think he's been cheating since before the wedding? She asked. Voice trembling, I didn't confirm. I didn't deny. I just said, would it really surprise you? The silence that followed was heavier than any words I could have spoken. By the end of that week, Hannah was unraveling completely. She hadn't been to work in days. She stopped answering group texts. Her social media, once filled with smiling newlywed pictures, went dark, and then, late one night, she showed up at my door. Her hair was unwashed, her eyes bloodshot, makeup smeared from hours of crying. She carried a duffel bag, dropped it by the door, and collapsed onto my couch. I can't stay with him, she whispered. Every time I look at him, I see her. I see all the lies. And I hate myself for not seeing it sooner. I sat beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. Then don't stay. You deserve better than this, Hannah. You always have. She broke down in sobs, clutching my hand like it was the only lifeline she had left, and I let her, because this was exactly where I wanted her, broken, dependent, desperate for my support. What Hannah didn't realize, what none of them realized, was that I hadn't just avenged myself that night at Helena's barbecue. I had shifted the balance permanently. She had thought excluding me from her wedding was a clever joke. That mocking me at dinner would make me small, invisible, but now, she was the one who couldn't show her face without whispers following her. She was the one who regretted every smug word, and Ryan? He was already a ghost in her life, the vows they exchanged less than a month ago now meaningless ash. The irony was exquisite. She had humiliated me once, and now she would live humiliated every single day, until she either left him or destroyed herself trying to stay. Either way, I had won. The days after Hannah moved into my place were heavy with silence and tears. She'd spend mornings staring blankly at her coffee, afternoons pacing the living room, evenings curled up under a blanket with her phone buzzing endlessly on the table. Ryan was relentless, call after call, text after text. Begging. Apologizing. Promising, it didn't mean anything. You're my wife. I made a mistake. Please, just come home. We can fix this. Every time, Hannah's face hardened a little more. She didn't answer him, not once. But I could see the war inside her. She wanted to believe him, to cling to the fantasy of the man she married. That was the opening I couldn't allow. It was a Thursday evening when Ryan finally showed up at my door. I wasn't surprised, his persistence had been building toward this. He stood there. Eyes hollow, clothes rumpled, like he hadn't slept in days. Is she here? He asked, voice hoarse. I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. She doesn't want to see you, please, he begged, running a hand through his hair. Just let me talk to her. I'll say whatever you want to hear. I cut him off, lowering my voice. Ryan, do you even hear yourself? You destroyed her. And now you're acting like a few words are going to fix that. His jaw clenched. I love her. If you loved her, I snapped, you wouldn't have been with Maya. He flinched at the name. That was the wound, and I pressed harder. You think I don't know? Everyone saw that message, Ryan. You didn't just hurt her privately, you humiliated her in front of the entire family. She can't forgive that. She shouldn't. He looked away, shame etched across his face. For a moment, I thought he might break down right there. Just tell her I came by, he muttered finally, defeated. I didn't. Hannah wasn't the only one who'd been talking. The family had, too. Helena was mortified, her once proud son-in-law now the subject of every whispered conversation. Cousins traded screenshots. Uncles shook their heads, aunts clucked their tongues, and I fed the fire. Whenever someone asked how Hannah was doing, I'd sigh just loud enough for them to lean in closer. She's devastated. Can you imagine? Married less than a month and already betrayed. Poor thing. She deserves so much better. I never mentioned that Ryan had come begging. I never repeated his apologies. Instead, I let the narrative take shape: Ryan the liar, Ryan the cheater, Ryan the failure of a husband, and with every retelling, Hannah's shame deepened. One night, she sat on my couch with her phone in her lap, Ryan's name glowing on the screen again. "What if he's telling the truth?" she whispered. "What if it really was just a mistake?" One night. One lapse in judgment, I leaned forward, my voice calm, careful, cutting. "Han, you saw the messages. Last night was amazing. That's not one night. That's a pattern. A choice. He chose her." Over and over again, tears filled her eyes, spilling down her cheeks. "I feel so stupid." "Don't," I said firmly, brushing her hair back like I used to when we were kids. "He fooled you because you trusted him. That's not stupidity, that's love. But you can't build a marriage on lies. Not if you ever want to be happy." She broke then, sobbing into my shoulder. And I held her, letting her drown in the truth I'd planted. The next day, Ryan cornered me outside the grocery store again. "Why are you doing this?" he demanded, eyes wild. "She won't even talk to me." "You're turning her against me." I raised an eyebrow. "You did that all on your own." "I made a mistake," he shouted, drawing stares from nearby shoppers. "People make mistakes. Why won't she just listen to me?" I lowered my voice, leaning close. "Because every time she tries to picture a future with you, she sees Maya's face. She hears those messages. And nothing you say can erase that." His shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of him. "I love her," he whispered again, broken this time. "Then let her go," I said coldly, and I walked away, leaving him standing there like a ghost of the man who once thought he could have it all. That night, Hannah blocked his number. She didn't announce it. Didn't even mention it. I only knew because I saw the relief on her face when her phone finally went silent. The war inside her was over. The man she'd married was dead to her now, replaced by a stranger she could never forgive, and I knew, with absolute certainty, there was no way back for them. The vows had been shattered, the marriage burned down to ashes, and I had made sure of it. Hannah didn't move back in with Ryan. She didn't even visit, after blocking his number. She poured herself into routine, going to work, helping mom around the house, joining me for dinners. But even in her quiet moments, I could see the cracks. She was still grieving not just the marriage, but the dream of what she thought life with Ryan would be. But if Hannah was trying to bury the pain, I made sure the world remembered it. It started with Uncle David's barbecue, the first big family event since the incident. Everyone was there. Laughter, chatter, clinking glasses. But beneath the surface, curiosity buzzed. Would Ryan show his face? Would Hannah? Ryan didn't come. Hannah did. She walked in with me at her side, chin lifted, eyes steady, even though I knew her stomach was in knots. The whispers started immediately. I leaned down and murmured, "Ignore them. Just breathe." But I didn't ignore them. When Aunt Clara asked me quietly, "How's she holding up?" I sighed dramatically. "She's trying. But you know, betrayal that public. It leaves scars. Honestly, I don't think she'll ever trust anyone the same way again." Later, when a cousin muttered that maybe it had been a misunderstanding, I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, is that what Ryan told you?" Funny didn't sound confused in those texts to Maya. Everywhere I went that evening, I left little drops of poison. By the end of the night, the family had a new collective memory, not of Ryan the charming husband, but Ryan the disgrace. At home, Hannah started making small changes. She cut her hair. Bought new clothes. Went to yoga with me twice a week. On Saturdays, we'd hit the farmer's market, and for the first time in weeks, I heard her laugh without it sounding forced. One night, as we walked back with bags of fresh bread and flowers, she whispered, "I think I'm going to be okay." I squeezed her hand. "Of course you are. He doesn't get to define your life." But while she tried to look forward, I never let her forget the past. Not completely, because forgetting could lead to forgiving. And forgiveness wasn't part of my plan. It happened on a rainy Sunday. Hannah and I were curled up on the couch, watching a movie, when the doorbell rang. Ryan, soaked through, eyes desperate, holding a crumpled bouquet of roses. "Hannah, please," he begged, voice breaking. "Just give me 5 minutes." 5 minutes to explain. She froze. I could feel the tremor in her body, the old wound tearing open again. I stepped forward before she could answer. "She doesn't want to hear it." "Stay out of this," he snapped, his voice edged with anger now. "This is between me and my wife, ex-wife," I said coldly, his face crumpled. "No. No, don't say that. Hannah, please." He reached past me, eyes locked on her. "You're my everything. I made a mistake, but I can be better. We can fix this." For a long moment, she just stared at him, trembling. I thought she might waver, then, in a voice I barely recognized as hers, she said, "Go home, Ryan. There's nothing left to fix." He broke right there, shoulders shaking, tears mixing with the rain. He left the flowers on the porch and stumbled away into the storm. I closed the door. And Hannah collapsed into my arms, sobbing. But even through her tears, I felt its relief. The final thread had been cut. In the weeks that followed, Ryan's absence was permanent. He stopped calling, stopped showing up. Word spread that he'd moved back in with his parents, job performance slipping, drinking more. The family's sympathy didn't go to him, it went to Hannah. Every glance, every word of support, every protective hug reminded her she wasn't the one who should be ashamed, and every whisper about Ryan made it clear. He was the one who would live with regret, not her. As for me, I made sure of it. Ryan's silence didn't last long. At first, it was just absentee, no texts, no calls, no sudden appearances. Hannah started sleeping better, eating better, smiling again. I thought maybe he'd finally accepted the truth, but then whispers started drifting through the family. Uncle David mentioned he'd heard Ryan was missing shifts at work. Aunt Clara sighed that she saw him drinking alone at a bar near her office. Helena, once his biggest supporter, confessed quietly at church that she didn't know what to do with him anymore. He wasn't just broken, he was unraveling, and I was determined to pull every last thread. Ryan had always bragged about his job, solid pay, good benefits, a chance to build a future for Hannah. But after the wedding disaster, his work ethic collapsed. Late arrivals turned into missed days. Missed days turned into excuses, and excuses only lasted so long. A cousin of ours, Evan, worked at the same firm. One evening, he told me over beers, "They're talking about letting Ryan go. He's just not the same. Distracted, moody. Always checking his phone, like he's waiting for someone who'll never call." I smiled sympathetically. Poor guy. But I can't imagine anyone trusting him with responsibility right now. The seed was planted. The next week, Ryan was unemployed. Ryan used to have a tight-knit circle, guys from college. Co-workers, gym buddies. They'd meet for poker, grab drinks after work, text each other memes late at night. But betrayal has a way of poisoning friendships, too. Some of them were friends with Hannah, had known her even longer than Ryan. And when I let it slip that Ryan had cheated before the wedding was even cold, the group started to fracture. One by one, his friends stopped answering his calls, stopped inviting him, stopped defending him. I heard later that when Ryan showed up at their usual bar, one of them told him flat out, "Man, you don't deserve her. You brought this on yourself." He left in silence. He didn't go back. Helena tried, at first, to stand by her son. She pleaded with Hannah to give him another chance, begged me to at least talk to him, to tell him what she could do to help. But the family was united. Every time Helena tried to defend him, someone else cut her down. He embarrassed us all. How can Hannah ever hold her head up after what he did? Some things can't be forgiven. I didn't even need to say much anymore. The current had shifted so completely against Ryan that even his mother couldn't fight it. Eventually, she stopped trying. It was at another family dinner that I saw him last. He showed up uninvited, looking thinner, older, like life had drained the color out of him. His eyes scanned the room, searching desperately for Hannah. She didn't even look at him. When he tried to speak, Helena grabbed his arm, whispering urgently for him to leave. But he shook her off. "I just want to say something," he pleaded, voice cracking. "Please, just one thing." The room fell silent. Dozens of eyes on him. "I love you, Hannah. I'm sorry. I'll never stop being sorry." But I can't live without you. And then he broke, in front of everyone, tears, trembling hands, a man completely shattered. The silence that followed wasn't sympathy, it was disgust. A collective judgment. The once proud husband, reduced to a pitiful figure, begging for scraps of forgiveness he would never receive. Hannah stood, her face like stone. You should have thought about that before, Maya, she said coldly. Then she turned her back on him. The family followed her lead. Ryan walked out alone, and no one stopped him. After that, he disappeared. No job. No friends. No family support. His marriage in ashes, his reputation destroyed. I heard whispers that he moved to a smaller apartment on the edge of town, stopped answering his mother's calls, spent nights drinking himself numb. Sometimes, people asked me if I felt sorry for him. I always smiled faintly. Actions have consequences. And in Ryan's case, the consequence was simple. He lost everything. Hannah didn't just survive, she rebuilt. The woman who once measured her life in wedding plans and Ryan's moods began carving out a future that had nothing to do with him. It started small extra hours at work, volunteering for projects, saying yes to opportunities she once would have turned down out of fear of leaving Ryan at home too long. Her boss noticed. Promotions came quickly, praise even quicker. Within months, she wasn't just an employee, she was becoming indispensable. One evening, after landing a major client, she came home glowing. I think I'm actually proud of myself, she admitted softly. I grinned. You should be. You did that. Not him. For the first time, I saw a spark that had been buried under Ryan's shadow was coming back to life. Ryan's betrayal had cut deep, but it also brought unexpected gifts. Old friends reached out, some who drifted during her marriage, wanting to reconnect. New friendships formed through work, yoga, and the small hobbies she'd rediscovered. Our house filled with laughter again, wine nights with her girlfriends, game nights with coworkers, long brunches on Sundays. I watched her laugh, really laugh, and felt something swell in my chest. Pride. Relief. Joy. And, maybe, the faintest glimmer of vengeance. Because every smile of hers was another knife in Ryan's heart. It wasn't me who pushed her. It wasn't even her friends. It was Hannah herself, one night, after another dinner where Ryan's name didn't come up once. She looked at me and said, I think I'm ready. Ready for what? I asked. She smiled nervously. To try again. To go on a date. My breath caught, but I forced my grin to match hers. Then you should. You deserve it. And so she did. The first date wasn't perfect, awkward silences, too many polite smiles. But she came home not crying, not broken, but hopeful. And that was everything. While Hannah's life bloomed, Ryan's shriveled. Helena told us in hushed tones that he'd lost his apartment. That he'd moved into a dingy rented room, barely furnished. That he'd stopped shaving, stopped caring. She begged Hannah to reach out, just once. He's not well, she whispered, tears trembling in her eyes. You don't understand how badly he's fallen. But Hannah only shook her head. He made his choices. I'm making mine. And I made sure the family remembered her strength, not his weakness. At the next reunion, no one mentioned Ryan. Not once. Instead, they celebrated Hannah's promotion, her new friends, her glow. Cousins toasted her resilience. Aunts whispered about how inspiring she was. Uncles clapped me on the back, saying how proud I must be of her. Ryan had become a ghost, Hannah, the hero, and the contrast couldn't have been clearer. While he sank into obscurity, she was rewriting her story into something brighter, stronger, and untouchable. One late evening, Hannah sat with me on the porch, sipping tea, watching the stars. Do you think I'll ever really move past it? She asked. I studied her profile, the calm, the quiet strength. You already have, I said. Look at you. You're building a life he can't touch. She leaned against me, silent for a moment. Then, softly, she whispered, I hope he regrets it every single day. I didn't tell her what I knew to be true, that he did, that regret was all he had left. Because the difference between Hannah and Ryan was simple. She was living, he was just existing. Regret, that's what Ryan became. Not a man, not even a memory, just a living vessel of regret. Helena was the only one who still mentioned him. Quietly. Painfully, he doesn't answer my calls anymore, she confided one Sunday, her eyes red. I had to drive over to see if he was even alive. His place is empty. Just bottles and dust. He doesn't eat. He barely speaks, the family pitied her, not him. They brought her casseroles, checked in, told her she was strong. But no one pitied Ryan. Not anymore, he had burned that bridge himself. At the same time, Hannah was dazzling everyone, her career was flying. She had started leading teams, mentoring juniors, even being invited to conferences to speak. Every success she had seemed to shine brighter because it came out of ashes Ryan had left behind. She was dating again, too. Slowly, carefully. A man named Marcus had taken her out 3 times, gentle, thoughtful, respectful. He wasn't the center of her world, but he was a reminder, there was life after betrayal, and Hannah was finally ready to live it. The last time I saw him, he looked like a ghost of himself. It was outside the grocery store. He hadn't seen me at first. His clothes hung off his frame, his hair unkempt, his face hollow. He was buying cheap liquor and instant noodles. When he turned and noticed me, his eyes widened, part shame, part desperation. "Can I talk to her?" he whispered, voice raw. "Please. Just once. I need her to know I'm sorry." I looked him dead in the eye. "She knows," I said coldly. "But sorry doesn't rebuild what you destroyed." His shoulders slumped. For a moment, I thought he might cry. But instead, he just nodded, paid for his groceries, and walked out into the night. I never saw him again. Months passed. Family dinners continued. Weddings, birthdays, holidays. Hannah was there, glowing, thriving. Ryan was never mentioned. It was like he'd been erased, written out of the family history. And maybe that was fitting. Because in every story told, every toast raised, every smile shared, Hannah was the heroine. Ryan? Just the cautionary tale no one needed to repeat. One night, much later, Hannah and I were sitting on the porch again. She was laughing about something Marcus had said, her eyes bright, her cheeks glowing. She turned to me suddenly, serious. "Do you ever think about him?" she asked softly. I considered my answer. Then I shook my head. "No. He made his choice. And you made yours. The only difference is you chose to live." She was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled, slow and steady. "Then let's keep living." And we did, because in the end, Ryan's greatest punishment wasn't anything we said or did. It was watching Hannah rise without him, and knowing he'd thrown it all away.